అదొక్కటే కింద తీసేయండి అవసరం లేదు అంతే అంతే
రికార్డింగ్ వద్దు.
వద్దు వద్దు కొంచెం 2 seconds పడుతుంది ఇది ఓపెన్ చేయండి
ఇదా
ఇది ఇక్కడ లైవ్ ఓపెన్ అయింది లైవ్
సో ఇట్స్ ఓపెన్ హియర్.
అయిపోయింది
దట్స్ గుడ్. ఆల్ రైట్.
ఓకే
ఇది మినిమైజ్ చేసేసి.
మినిమైజ్
Okay. All right. Apparently, I'm online. Good morning, people. I'm Professor Vasanta Leela, professor of one of your first year subjects, that is anatomy. I hope there is enough light here to see and to hear me clearly. Today's session is about an introduction to the anatomy curriculum. But before that, I would just wanted to say welcome to the first year, in fact, to the first day of your future. You'll have stepped into a domain called healthcare. It's an endless ocean. There is no beginning, no end. There is any depth to which you can go. It's a lifetime commitment, a lifetime investment, and a lifetime reward. But it's a lot of hard work. We'll hold your hands through it. We've been here before. We know the pitfalls and the difficulties. But we can't bear the load for you that you have to do. We can give you tips and shortcuts and help you and encourage you and hopefully inspire you. But still, it's a lot of hard work. It is a whole language in itself, the language of modern medicine. And what you will learn in my subject, anatomy, is the ABC of it, the structure and the baseline functions of each and every part of the human body, which will be the foundation on which you will be able to offer healthcare services to other human beings whom you will call patients. From now on, everybody in the world, including yourself, is a potential patient, because illness or disease or malady happens to everyone without exception. Somewhere between your birth and your death, you will fall sick. And so will your loved ones and your friends and your neighbors. And you are chosen to come into a domain where therefore you are literally on call 24/7, because you don't know where ill health can happen, when it can happen around you. And you will be committed, you will be promising yourself and your society that you will be at their service. So it's a vocation more than a profession, and I welcome you to it. Everyone calls it a noble profession, but that only depends on how noble you behave within it. A bad doctor or a bad human being can make it a very, very, very dangerous profession. It will be my duty and responsibility, along with all my teaching colleagues, to try to keep you all within a path of nobility and service. And we will try to exemplify and model that behavior in how we handle you, how we handle our colleagues, our patients, people around us, everybody in the healthcare team, how we all hold it together and put it in the service of everyone else. It ends up becoming a very niche group because we relate, we understand each other very well. After 5 years of study, there'll be a sense of brotherhood, a sense of fraternity, and we will support each other professionally. But it'll take a long time to get there. You will have to change slowly, subtly, from the normal average teenager that you are into a very different kind of adult, different from practically everybody else. I'm not trying to make this sound exclusive or elitist, but it is true. We are at the top of the pyramid in terms of what a human being can be, or at least we should be. And that involves both left and right brain, your heart and your mind. The mind part we will train, but the heart must also learn alongside. So I just have prepared a couple of slides to orient you to what you're going to learn in this course. I hope you can see it. The curriculum overview for anatomy. The other two subjects you will do are physiology and biochemistry, and their respective professors will introduce it to you. Everything you already know. I'm sorry, I'm communicating offline with some of the other colleagues because they're going to come after me. I know you can see my face and you can hear my voice, but there's a lot going on in the medical college in your absence. We miss you. We wish you were here. But we will catch up with you when you're permitted to come to campus. In the meantime, you need to open your books. First, get your books, then open them, and slowly orient yourself to what you're going to be doing. But while you're doing that, or even before you're doing that, just a little bird's eye view of what you will do in this particular subject. That's the kind of drawings I get from my first years, but I've done that myself because essentially that's what you're going to learn. That stick figure, everything about it, inside and out. But since we are a science, and a very exquisite one, we will teach it to you in a very structured manner so that all the data points that you collect, and there's a lot of data, all of it will have to sit together in such a way, so beautifully archived in your brain library, that you have to be able to recall everything that you've learned when you need it. It becomes the alphabet of medicine. At 2:30 in the morning, if you're woken up, you shouldn't be rushing to a book. It should all come to you, what you need, isn't it? So we spend some time establishing it for you. 1 year is not enough, but still we'll do our best. You all are already among the cream of the country, so we'll assume that you have the IQ, you have the attitude, you have the eagerness to learn, you have the willingness to serve, and therefore you will make whatever effort is required to get a grip on everything that you need to know. The subject of anatomy can be taught in so many different ways because the human body can be perceived from very different perspectives, depending on what it is you want to do at the end of the day with that body, right? If you are a lab work bench rat, right, you could be just doing exquisite, detailed breakdown analysis and studying it down to the barest minimum. But to what purpose? We do it to serve the living human being who may fall sick. So we establish the structure and the functional basis of health in a human being. A normal person, a healthy person, an otherwise fit, able, average person, an adult, is taught from the perspective of the physical structures which make up the body. That is called gross anatomy, and we take a regional approach. So if you look at a human being's size and shape, there is a head and a neck and upper limbs and torso, which consists of thorax and abdomen. You're aware of this. I don't have to tell you. And then you have 2 upper limbs and 2 lower limbs. So there's essentially, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 regions. So we call this regional approach. And we dissect it from skin down to the deepest structures, which is usually the bone. For example, in the limb, the deepest structure is bone, right? Whereas in a body cavity like thorax or abdomen, the deepest structure is not a structure, it's space. And there are lots of structures arranged in that space in a particular way, which may change at different times of day, at different ages of growth, at different functions that are happening, such as digestion or elimination or reproduction. So all of that, we will put it together as if it is still and we are taking a snapshot in time, right? So we look at a region as if it is frozen in time and we cut it up and we say this is superficial, this is deep, this is left, this is right, right? This is thick, this is thin, and so on and so forth. This is hollow, this is solid, and so on. Neuroanatomy is a structure of the brain, again approached from this regional point of view, but neuroanatomy includes brain and spinal cord, which is housed within a very secure bony cage, the skull and the vertebral column. So that can be considered a separate region, but the whole back where the spinal cord is actually the back of the thorax and abdomen too. So there will be areas of overlap, and you probably cannot segregate regions as if you cut them off from each other. That doesn't work because you're talking about a live human being at the end of the day. So you will see that these overlaps happen even between different volumes of your textbook. Those little overlaps will happen wherever it's very significant. When you're transiting from neck region into thorax region, many important events happen. So we'll be emphasizing on those things, right? And so on and so forth. But the essential approach is regional, and we call that whole subject or that whole part of it as gross anatomy. And I'm including neuroanatomy, which is the study of the brain part, as one of the things in gross anatomy. In that, again, a slightly skewed approach is surface anatomy or living anatomy. How the surface, that is your skin, your integumentary system, which is wrapping up the whole thing together. What are its features? What are its elevations and depressions and prominent points and skin creases and especially visual but also tactile? Things you can touch and feel and get a lot of information about, and reference points from which you can make measurements or you can make estimations of other structures which are deeper located. So surface anatomy becomes very important clinically, because next year when you go to the hospital, you'll be actually touching and feeling your patients, and you'll be getting information about their live internal situation from the surface examinations, the visual examination, inspection, as well as the palpatory examinations that you will do. Osteology is the skeletal basis of your whole body. It is a study of the skeletal system, but we teach it to you as separate sets of bones and as articulated skeletal structures together, a thoracic cage or cranial cavity. And that we're teaching it parallelly along with the regional dissections that you do. Then radiological and imaging anatomy is extremely huge, and it's going to grow because it is a way of visualizing the internal situation without actually cutting through. And it's becoming a very sophisticated art. In that, you will be comparing with cross-sectional anatomy. So in a few places, when we are showing you a CT scan or an MRI, we will also be showing you the actual anatomical cut through on a cadaver, so that you can see for yourself that, okay, this is what we have cut, and that is why it looks like this in the image, because your images are mostly white to black through gray, 300 shades of gray, and you have to figure it out. It helps when you do an anatomical cross section to tell you, okay, this is a significant area where we are cutting it, and this is how it will look in your live patient. We don't have the luxury of cutting open our patients to be able to see their cross sections, but we do it virtually through the sophistication of electronics available nowadays. A much more relevant, close to home and close to your daily life approach is what we call applied or clinical or surgical anatomy, because the whole purpose of studying this structure and function is to be able to do a surgical correction if required, and that patient is showing evidence that his anatomical structures are deranged, not probably amenable to a medical healing or a therapy, and therefore you may have to take it out, or you may have to take out a piece and study it further to decide what to do next. So at every stage in a cadaveric dissection, when we teach you the gross anatomy of it, we'll be telling you the applied or the application of that basic knowledge. It's like engineering is an applied science of physics. So like that, surgery is an applied science of anatomy. And we will be doing that with you. Now, all of this is being done from a regional perspective, but it can all be done alternatively from a systemic approach. And many systems of medicine in the West, particularly the 7-year MD program in the Western first world, for example, they take a systemic approach where, for example, like there is a neuroanatomy, there will be a anatomy of brain and spinal cord, physiology of brain and spinal cord, biochemistry of brain and spinal cord, pathology and surgery, all taught together as neuroscience. So the entire system, the good of it, the bad of it, all variables of it, as one block, not separated out into regions or into different subjects either. That's a different, it's not better or worse, it's just different, but it's the same knowledge. So that can also be done, and we do that in a little way. I'll come to that. So there'll be a whole bunch of your time in first year devoted to gross anatomy, which we will approach in so many ways. Then we will go a little more magnified and look at not only the gross things which you can see with your naked eye, but the structures of the body which you see with the help of instruments called microscopes. So histology, or what we can call microscopic anatomy. Even further, if you go right into the heart of the cell and we look at the genetics, that is intranuclear structures, your 46 chromosomes. But we will teach you only cytogenetics, not deeper than that. Whereas other specialties like biochemistry will go into molecular genetics. So we will teach you only the cytogenetics part. It's a small, what can we say, add-on to the histology. Then there is embryology, because all of this is about the adult human being, the mature individual Homo sapiens. But how did we get here? And the reproductive biology which supported that and created this adult from a zygote will be covered in what we call embryology or developmental anatomy. So this developmental anatomy and microscopic anatomy will be going parallelly as we do the gross anatomy dissections. This is how your first year anatomy will proceed, and once you get into it, you'll have a much clearer, you'll get a grip on it soon enough. So we'll start with general anatomy. That is usually all the systems, like let's say cardiovascular system or respiratory system or digestive system or genitourinary system. So one lesson per each per day to give you a bird's eye view of, oh, this is how this function of the body is underlined, is the basis of it is these structures, these organs, these tissues, and so on and so forth. We'll do that first before we allow you to get into the gross anatomy dissection regional wise, because it's always good to have you to move from the generic to the specific. So we fill your mind with the whole picture first, and then we'll bring it down, focus it sharper into this region by this region by this region, because your approach in surgery to the patient will be regional. Right? He'll say, I have a pain in my hand, right? Or I have a lump in my neck. He's not going to come to you with the diagnosis. He's not going to say, oh, this is a respiratory system issue I have, isn't it? So we'll bring it back to regional, because that's how you will be seeing patients next year as the anatomical basis of the future surgical subjects. So I'll stop here, and we'll take up the first session. We'll start with the thousands of new words that you will have to learn in medicine. We do not have the luxury of going slow, so you will have to run to catch up with us, to keep up with us. But you all are much younger, much smarter, and have lots more energy than your teachers do. So we'll expect that you'll keep us on our toes and stay sharp and bright and challenge us and learn as if there's an insatiable hunger for becoming the best doctors in the world. Okay, let's learn together. And I'm so glad. I miss not having the opportunity to interact with you. I know you all are chatting with each other. That's not a good idea when the hard science starts. But we're using this YouTube live relay because it has so many plus points. We'll see if there are ways in which we can include classrooms where there'll be a little bit of interaction and there'll be a little bit of query resolution in case some doubts come up. But if you're raising questions or doubts regarding subject matter, I will expect that feedback to come to me from the admin and the IT departments, and I'll try to address it as the classes proceed. Thank you, and I'll see you again soon.